So you've been playing WaveLand for a bit, and you're thinking, but how to go box with fast? This video will cover some general movement stuff, as well as some advanced tech, and some terminology that the community has decided on mostly, but also just some random shit that I'm going to throw in there. Because if you're the first to talk about something, then you're the one to name it. I'm going to name all the things. I've added jump points in the description to skip to the juicy bits.
Part 1. Basic movement.
There are three primary ways of moving. There's jumping, dashing, and just moving side to side. Seeing as WaveLand's mechanics were inspired by melees, it may be no surprise that much of the terminology is shared as well. For example, with full jumps and short hops, which are just over 4 blocks and about 2 blocks respectively. Dashing is going to be your primary movement option. You're going to use it for anything that makes you go fast, basically. There's two options you can set related to dashing, which is locked and unlocked. If you play on keyboard, you're already going to be in locked, which is just dashing in 8 different directions, but with unlocked angles on a controller, you can dash in any direction. Whether locked or unlocked angles is optimal is undecided at the moment, so just personal choice. Unlocked angles do allow you to do some movement options, such as the Oklahoma skip in 6-1, or skipping most of 1-3, or some ice movement. I'll explain more when it comes up. Now obviously just jumping and walking isn't going to get you anywhere fast. Dashing allows you to wave dash by jumping and dashing into the ground repeatedly, wave land out of a jump, and dash jump. Ledge dashing, however, is going to be the main way that you build speed. Unlike melee, ledge dashing is dashing off of a ledge, clipping the corner in the process. Depending on your timing, you'll see a particle effect, which indicates your resultant speed. A black dash is great. White dash is also still pretty good. If you don't see a particle effect, we don't have a name for that. It just, it's not good. Empty ledge? Blank ledge? This also gives you a mid-air jump, indicated by the arrow. The spooky arrow. Woo! Spooky! Woo! Next up, wall jump. Pretty self-explanatory, you dash into a wall and jump. If your dash isn't active, you can't jump. Like melee, you can also fast fall. The active window for this is about 3 frames after the apex of your jump. As a side note, your x-coordinate is actually stored as a floating point number. Every time you dash, it adds a decimal place until you ledge dash again, which means sub-pixel positioning? Let's just not talk about that. Shine is also a very useful movement option. When used, it allows you to keep your horizontal movement while stalling out your vertical movement. This means over long falls you can preserve your momentum by shine stalling, but more importantly, you have access to one of the best techs in the game. If you dash horizontally and shine immediately, you go one of the fastest speeds available, on par with black dash. Now, I've heard some people in the community call it a dash cancel. It's more of a momentum continuation or a dash extension. For the sake of brevity, I'm going to call it a shine boost. Many of these inputs can actually buffer into one another. While this game does run at 60 frames per second, wave dashing, for example, is way easier than melee. I know what you're saying. This is cool and all, but give me the frame data. The fastest you can go in this game is 6 speed, meaning 6 x coordinates per frame, which you can get from black dashes and shine boosts. So let's say we activate a shine boost and start measuring at coordinate 1000. That means a second later, you'll be at coordinate 1360. The window for white dashes or black dashes actually changes based off of whether you're on locked or unlocked angles, and depends on what frame into your dash you clip the corner. For locked angles, if you hit the corner in the first 6 or 7 frames, you get a black dash. From that to about 12 frames is a white dash, and beyond that is an empty one. Now speed is actually held in memory as a fractional number. For example, black dashes always generate 6 speed, but depending on the timing of your white dash, it'll generate a 5.1 something to a 5.8 something. In fact, the only purpose they seem to serve is to be a speed decay buffer. Every perfectly buffered jump after that will result in another 0.5 decrease until you get to 4, at which point it'll decrease by 0.25 until it gets to 3. This means that even if you're holding right for the entire time, you'd be at 6 speed and then 5 for 2 jumps, and then 4 for 2 jumps, and then 3 for the remaining. This also means that a white dash procced at an earlier frame versus a later frame will result in 4 speed after 2 jumps rather than 1. Of course, with unlocked angles, you do need specific angles to register a black dash, otherwise you'll result in a white or an empty one. The fastest way to travel across a long flat area is to shine boost and jump over and over. You'll be effectively switching between 6 and 5 speed. Mind you, speed starts decreasing the very frame that you touch the ground, meaning that you're at 5 immediately. You'll continue to be in 5 even while on jump squat. Also, if you're doing the short hop fast fall variation of this technique, keep in mind that shine has a cooldown of about 40 frames, so you might screw up. An empty ledge dash gets you about mid-4s in memory. If you buffer a jump after a speed between 4 and 4.5, it'll floor to 4, meaning after 4.2 it'll just be 4. As I mentioned, the ledge dash windows for unlocked angles are actually different from locked. You have about 9 frames for a black dash, and about 15 for a white dash. I'm not sure how precise those numbers are. They could be 10 and 20, or 9 and 18. Those would make more sense. But this means you do have a wider window for unlocked angles. Walking is 3 speed. Dash dancing is 4 speed. Wave dashes and dash jumps are 5, as are stomp jumps. A wall jump, followed by an input that's away from the wall or neutral, results in 3 speed. Speaking of which, a neutral input in air doesn't affect speed. You can set up a really long fly and shine stall, and not press any directional inputs and maintain that exact speed. If you have bad gates on your controller or flick the stick accidentally, you're gonna be in for a bad time. Shine boosts usually result in 6 speed, but it depends on how far into the dash you activate shine. For speed and memory, dash assumes 6, and then after each active frame, drops by 0.3. It starts at 5.7, then 5.4, etc. So I think the resulting speed is basically a rounded up number. So if while in a dash state at 4.8 and then you shine, I think that rounds up to 5. Your speed cancels out when you hit a ceiling, but it doesn't cancel out when you hit a wall. For example, if you're walking into a wall, you're at 3 speed the entire time, not 0. If you shine boost and slap a stalactite, as soon as you pass the tip, you're still at 6 speed. This is also great for when you're waiting for doors to open. If you're in a higher speed and land, you'll end up in 4 speed. The ground has a friction value of 0.3 unless you're dashing into it or a wall, which is 0.2, or ice, which is even lower. Speaking of ice, while on it, you can actually attain 7 speed by shining and then dashing sideways. While sliding on ice with no inputs, your speed in memory will decrease by 0.15 every 4 frames. Then after 1, it'll jump to 0.
I'm not even pressing anything, this shit's crazy!
The fastest you can fall is 8 speed, but it takes a while to accelerate to that point. Fast fall starts you off at 4 speed unless you're already past that, in which case it doesn't do anything. Stomping or dashing directly downwards is 6. Therefore, optimization in levels where you have to fall comes down to falling for long distances and stomping for small ones. But fast fall also works as a maneuvering device. Nudging yourself just a little bit. The summary of this section is stay in the air whenever possible, and always stay at 6 speed whenever possible. Part 2. Obstacles. Minor spoilers ahead. If you get hit by a turret, they always hit you right. I don't know. It's just the way it works. Darts hit you in the direction that they're going, but they have diagonal and vertical hitboxes too, so it depends on where you approach them from. You can be hit sideways, diagonal, or up and down. Saws seem to have 16 hitboxes equally spread around them, which means there are 16 directions you can be hit. Swinging saws? I have no idea how swinging saws work. I think the hitboxes change as it rotates, but Icicles hit you downwards or diagonally downwards. Is there damage boosting? Kind of. Dash gives you invulnerability, so this means that you can take damage and spam up the side of 2-3, for example, when you're getting the coin. Because you can act immediately out of damage, this means you can cancel out your momentum that you get from damage. For example, at the top of 2-6, if you get hit by that dart, you can immediately dash out of it. If you're doing the bottom path in 2-4, you can basically ignore one of the saws. Is 2-5 start a damage boost? Maybe. Again, more like damage ignoring. When you touch a dash refresher, your X and Y coordinates are set to its, your vertical speed is set to 0, and it gives you your air dash back. Because they maintain your horizontal momentum, in addition to teleporting you a small distance, it's always faster to zip across them with a shine boost than to travel without them. Shine blocks are pretty sweet. They allow some shortcuts, but there's something weird with the hitbox of shine. This happens. The thing about shine blocks and anything with a movement hitbox on it is that you can do stuff off of them. So the takeaway from this section is just do that wherever you can. It's great. Boosters, officially called jump pads, boost you. Wow! They preserve your horizontal momentum and you can cancel out the vertical effects with a shine, which is actually pretty useful. If you're on a fall-through platform, you press down and you go through it. If you don't want to go through it, hold down before you fall onto it. On the current patch, 1.1.4, these are a bit more dangerous to dash on with unlocked angles due to the way the game handles down inputs.
Oh, what the fuck?
Metal blocks can be destroyed with bombs or turret shots. Turret manipulation, therefore, is a thing. This is super useful on 3.6 and 5.4 and other instances. Platforms made of metal blocks can be dashed upon while they're being destroyed, off of which you can get a black dash, which is hella dank. Dash speed into ice depends on the angle of approach, meaning that unlocked angles does have some advantages here. On top of its slippery properties, it has an additional quirk. Whatever angle you use to dash onto ice is stored until you act out of it. That means on unlocked angles, if you dash using an angle that gets you a black dash, at the ledge, you'll black dash. On locked angles, you always get a black dash. There's not too much to say about the goal, other than the hitboxes probably aren't exactly where you think they are. The guy in the third nightmare, known in the files as the Dark Wraith and in the community sometimes as Richie Chase,
Because he's a dick, XD.
He spawns off screen and the auto splitter works with his death, so if you're using that and you're running savior percent, you can actually time it to kill him off screen. For the final boss, it seems that some of his movement can be manipulated by being where he's not, plus you can bully him certain directions with the sword. As for the rest of the fight, it's mostly RNG.
Pop free. So you wanna go even faster.
So you've been speedrunning any percent, and you're wondering how to shave off at least a minute of your time. Well, let me tell you about Quick Reset. If you're familiar with Melee's start menu, you can exit the match with LRA start. WaveLand has a similar mechanic by holding down dash and jump and then pressing pause. You can use this in any of the main 36 levels or the 3 coin machines to restart the level instantly, instead of having to go through the pause menu. However, you can also use Quick Reset while you're in the ending menu when it's counting up the timer and showing you your score. This may seem like a meme, but you seriously save about 2 seconds each time you do it. On the technical side, it takes about 184 frames from touching the goal to see your letter grade, which is when menu options pop up and you can act on them. After you press the continue button, it starts to fade black, which takes about 50 frames to reach full black, and then another 40 or so until it starts fading in. I recorded a few Quick Reset attempts. From the frame I touched the goal until QR, until pressing exit, took me 162, 142, and 117 frames. On a task level, this would take about 93 or 95 frames. I think the fade out and fade in after exiting is different from continuing too. This means that even if your reactions are sluggish, it's still faster to Quick Reset. Do note that using QR strats is a tiny bit risky. If you reset in a run without touching the goal, you have to play the level over. The first frame that you touch the goal is actually not the frame where the shard becomes active and floats into your inventory. It's the second frame. So when you see this is too soon. The first actionable frame is the first frame where you can pause, which is when a light mound shows on the ground while teleporting in. Now there are 2 factors that I was wondering about in testing the timer at the end. First, the shard floating above the goal can be in different spots on the screen at the end of the level. This floats from the goal to the top of the screen in the end sequence. While it does impact the timer's visibility, it doesn't impact the timer actually counting up. It starts counting up beforehand. The second thing I wondered was whether having a long time would take longer to count up at the end. Turns out the math that it uses to count up is logarithmic. Excuse me. So there's maybe only 1 or 2 frames difference, depending on the level. All of this means that you literally save about 2 seconds every time you use QR. If you're running 100% because you hate yourself, some levels you can get the coin and the S rank at the same time. For those where you can't coin S, you're going to reset twice, which means more time to save, in addition to the coin machines where you can also use QR. You may have some trouble getting into doors. I used to think mashing was the good way to get into doors. Well, turns out, you can just hold the input, just walk up to it. Ain't that some shit? This is really useful in a few spots of a full run. This includes doors that are slightly above you, which you can Stagger Shine up to and keep holding the action button to enter. A Stagger Shine is basically a shine boost, except you shine after a diagonal input instead of a horizontal one. Some Stagger Shines with unlocked angles can be 6 speed. If it's 45-degree angles upwards, it's about 5 speed. Downwards by 45-degree angles is about 5.8 or so in memory. In-game these are both 5 speed, but the latter one has more of a speed decay buffer. Using locked angles, Stagger Shines result in about 5.4 in memory, and about 5.2 with a few frames of delay. Stagger Shines therefore can be used to gain just a tiny bit of height while still maintaining most of your speed. If you've played 5.5, you know how the boosters at the end can eat your dash and then send you to your doom. Corner buffering is where you dash into the corner and buffer a jump just barely before the booster. The timing is specific, but it's not frame perfect.
And look how sick it looks. Oh, look at that.
While dashing into the ground, the dash stays active for a little bit. In this time, you can input the opposite direction and jump. Pivoting is useful in places like ascending the World 3 Overworld or in 3.6 on Locked. Pan movement is for when you gain control of your character after you exit a level while the camera is still panning towards you. I haven't counted the frames for this and nobody's really used it yet, but perfecting the timing prediction would be really useful after places like 2.2 or 1.4. Cliff scaling is going up any cliff. I define a cliff as a tall wall with any outwards protrusions. There are 3 major cliffs in the game: 5.5 as a whole, Sanctuary Cliff, and Snowy Cliff. There are a few tricks to cliff scaling. One is that wall jumps are a fixed height. It doesn't matter whether you're sliding up, sliding down, or dashing directly into the wall sideways. Your height of your jump will always be the same. 2 is that holding away from a wall jump and a neutral input are exactly the same. They'll get you the same distance after a wall jump. Becoming consistent at scaling cliffs comes down to becoming consistent at exactly where your jump input goes on the wall, regardless of sliding on it. U-jumps involve dropping down from a stalactite and then shining and jumping up to the other side. However, U-jumps are awful. Just try to avoid them and skip them whenever possible. The goal here is to make your inputs as simple as can be. So the end of 6.5 or the top of 5.5 going to the coin, Just go under. Midway through 6-3, instead of dashing through those, just shine boost and zip through the refreshers.
Your thirst for knowledge is unquenchable, Acolyte.
Menus can be near frame perfect. You can't hold up or down to go through multiple options, but holding down every other frame would be the fastest way to go to the bottom of the menu on the portal, for example. If you love Hax Dashing in Melee, well, WaveLand has got you covered. This trick isn't applicable in too many spots, but the 1-1 coin record and this part in 5-6 both make use of the Hax Dash. A Superjump is what I call a shine immediately followed by a dash jump. This is made possible because the character's model actually shrinks during shine for a brief moment. The game registers this as midair, which is why you can dash out of it, and it's also why you can get the really fast ice speeds. This is used in 3-6, destroying the bomb block and then continuing on with the level. I don't have any advice for this, there's just a lot of inputs going on at the same time. Keeping track of physical cues and levels isn't so much of a trick as it is maybe a bar trick. For example, getting the 5-1 coin, you can stomp while aligned with this pillar in the background. Or if you want to perform the stallless trick, getting the key in 2-6, you can keep track of the left side of the level as you ascend, so you can jump in the right spot at the top of the wall. The invisible slope clip involves the fact that there are slopes programmed into the game, but they're not really used. This is tricky to explain, but basically if you approach a ledge diagonally from the bottom, you have the ability to clip it at just the right angle and jump immediately out of it. It's almost entirely a timing thing. It has to do with what frame your box aligns with the wall. This is much harder to pull off after you finish World 1 because if you get the angle wrong, you just wall jump. You can use this in tutorial on unlocked angles right here, for example.
I can never get this shit, what the fuck?
The 4-3 skip, aka the Frozen Fortress skip, aka the Swishes skip, aka the Barrier skip, is accomplished by you just go up here. Check it out. Look how easy that is. An interesting thing to note is that the top of the level pushes you down, which kind of makes it like you have extra gravity, so be aware of that. Some levels have paths that aren't immediately obvious that allow you to go under the bulk of the rest of the level. For example, the 5N shortcut, where you skip the key, or the 2N shortcut, where you skip a small portion of the upper path. This trick is accomplished by maintaining the double jump indicator on the screen. You can do this while holding down action and landing and entering a door at the same frame. Spooky arrow! Woo! When grabbing a gem, all of your movement resets after the small cutscene. This means if you position yourself in the air while you grab it, afterwards you can shine boost out of it, or wave dash, or whatever you want. Whee! Cutscene fall is a state that you enter after a few places in the full run of the game. For example, in the transition to tunnels, Techno Hall, and falling down from the top of Snowy Cliff. This is mainly just useful after the Snowy Cliff, otherwise you'd fall to the ground and have to climb up the small ledge. Instead, you can shine boost out. You don't always have to stomp jump out of a stomp. While a stomp jump does function exactly the same as a dash jump, and you can wave dash out of it if you want. Sometimes it sends you too far and too fast to the side. A small maneuvering option is neutral stomp, where you just jump without any inputs and then move afterwards. It's not necessary depending on your playstyle, but for example, I neutral stomp here in 2-6, and here in 6-1. Entering the pause menu doesn't affect movement in-game. Remember that while flying through midair, neutral input doesn't affect your speed. So if while during a run you need to check your total coin count or check how many S's you have, you can pause or tab in midair and not sacrifice any frames. You can actually activate your shine between the shrines for shine puzzles. It's pretty precise, but you can activate 2 of the shrines at the same time. It's also direction dependent, meaning you can enter a password doing this and save time. When playing through a level, it shows the next available rank that you haven't gotten yet at the top of the screen. So if you're using QR strats and you've skipped the end screen, you can still see what rank you've got. If you got a B rank, it'll display A. If you got an A rank, it'll display S. And if S, it's just blank. And with that, congratulations! You're a full-fledged WaveLand Academy graduate. A master of fast in your own right. In other words, box of fast and so can you! Well, anyway, hope you found this useful. Here's the credits to the people that I need to give credits to. If you like this video, don't subscribe. This isn't the main focus of my channel. So, it's a little awkward.